For a while now, people have been asking me to check out Lightroom's camera. So over the past couple of weeks, I have, and I found it easy to use, relatively well featured for how I like to shoot anyway, and I'm happy with the pictures that I've been taking with it. But of course, I have more detail for you than that. So Lightroom's camera, brought to you of course by Adobe. And I'm not going to review it like I normally would, because Lightroom's camera is not a fully fledged standalone camera app. It's just an optional extra built in to Lightroom CC. This isn't Lightroom camera like Photoshop camera. No, this is Lightroom's camera. It's literally just a mode within a Lightroom. But with that said, I'm still expecting it to deliver something. After all, Adobe are marketing Lightroom as the capture, edit, share all-in-one solution. So there must be something that gives Lightroom users a reason to want to use this camera over all of the other great third-party camera apps. So is there anything? Let's have a look. First of all, it's very simple and easy to use for all kinds of photographers. Everything is pretty much here on screen, as this is literally all of the options and settings that you get. Even in its most advanced, its most complex state, which is professional mode with all of the manual controls at the bottom here, it never feels overly complicated, cluttered, or overwhelming. As a raw manual shooter who relies on exposure guides and likes to get to the settings I want quickly and intuitively, I appreciate this stripped back, non-intrusive style of user interface and user experience. And I particularly like how when you close Lightroom and then reopen it again, it opens up right back where you were with the exact same settings. And when you change the camera, so when you go from the wide to the telephoto, for example, your settings stay exactly the same as they were, which is something that I wish my personal camera app of choice, Halide, would adopt. The manual controls themselves can be a little bit clunky at times, but I do like how you can access them completely one-handed when shooting vertically. And I did think initially that I would struggle shooting in RAW without a histogram or shadow clipping, but since I shoot virtually every single day, I have like the settings for all situations seemingly ingrained into my mind, so I didn't actually find it to be a problem. I was still able to consistently achieve the exposure that I wanted. But I know that different people require different and more features. I'm in a place now where DNG manual controls and highlight clipping is enough for me most of the time. But I know Lightroom users who are probably used to something a bit more comprehensive, a bit more complex from Adobe, will want more from their camera app. Pro RAW, for example, isn't here. Just take a look at Pro Camera. This is the app I think Adobe would make if Lightroom Camera was a standalone app, packed full of powerful features with deep multi-layered menus and far more things than any kind of photographer would ever need to use. This has Made by Adobe written all over it. So in auto and professional mode, I don't think there's anything to tempt users away from other camera apps. Whether you shoot JPEG, RAW, auto or manual, there are far better options out there, and I've reviewed most of them. And the promise of Lightroom being the capture, edit, share all-in-one solution just isn't enough, because you can automatically import new photos into Lightroom as you capture them with other apps. So is there anything that gives Lightroom users a reason to use Lightroom's camera? Well, perhaps, and it's this high dynamic range mode. This is intriguing because it allows you to take a DNG HDR photo with a single tap. All you do is compose your photo, tap the shutter, Lightroom will process your file for a minute, and there you go, point and shoot DNG HDR. And as you can see, it works really well handheld. The results are often very high quality, and I didn't see any of the artifacts that can appear when you merge images together. Pretty cool, and I'm sure some app out there can do the same thing, but this is the first time I've seen it and I think people will like it. But will I replace the manual exposure bracketing method that I currently use and have demonstrated in a past video? No. This is the method I'm talking about. You set up your tripod, find a baseline exposure with manual settings, then do actual maths to calculate all of your other exposures based on stops before dialing in your settings and taking each photo manually. Then you bring all of the photos into Lightroom Classic, merge them, and hope that there's no movement artifacts. So that's obviously a lot more work for a similar result. So why don't I just use HDR mode in Lightroom? Well, there's two reasons, and you're gonna roll your eyes at this. I actually like to work for my photos. I enjoy the process of working and creating my photos. I find it boring when I just rely on software to do all of the work for me. And the second reason is I'm not a Lightroom user anymore. I don't use Lightroom. I don't have anything against Lightroom, don't get me wrong, it's phenomenal. But I use Darkroom full time, and the only reason I have Lightroom installed on my phone is so I can make videos about it, like this one. And when I'm not making videos, it's not on my phone, literally. So yeah, those are my reasons. But if you're not an old-fashioned weirdo like me and you are a Lightroom user, then definitely check out the HDR mode in Lightroom's camera. But apart from that, if you currently use another third-party camera app, I don't see any reason to ditch it for Lightroom's. If you're paying $9.99 a month for Adobe's photography plan and you want to shoot in RAW with manual controls maybe, then in that situation, this one might be worth a look. But if I was in charge of Lightroom's camera, I would take it more down the learning route instead. Adobe have really been focusing on the discovery and learning tools to help their users improve their editing, and I would incorporate the same sort of stuff into Lightroom's camera. For example, people could enable little tips to show up on the screen to help them. So when you're shooting in RAW, a little thing could pop up saying, hey, it looks like you're going to be one stop overexposed at these settings. Consider increasing your shutter speed. Or hey, your ISO is 2000. This is going to introduce some noise into your image. Maybe consider these settings instead. And I'm obviously just brainstorming here. These aren't fully formed ideas. I haven't given this too much thought. But at least it's something different, something that ties it into the Adobe learning and discovery experience. So Lightroom's camera, what do you reckon? Am I missing the point? Do you actually use it? And if so, let me know what kind of photography you do, what kind of photography you are, and how Lightroom's camera helps you where other apps don't. I'm genuinely intrigued. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Take care, stay curious, and Ozzy Buna.